Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to How to Get Hired. I'm Bill, the company's expert, and this is the weekly live stream I do. This one is weekly without fail, where I do a Q&A. So I basically just take questions from people about how to pass job interviews, how to write a resume, how to do networking, how to discover jobs via networking, how to apply, how to talk to recruiters, how to talk to hiring managers, all that kind of stuff. How to negotiate salary, anything to do with employment and careers, basically, as an employee. That's what I'm here to help you with. So if you have any questions about this, you should see the chat box somewhere near my face, in the vicinity of my face, and get in the chat and let me know what you're struggling with, what you're wondering about, and I will do my best to help you out if I can. Yeah. Slightly different time slot this week, but that's okay. We're a little bit earlier than normal, but I'm going to be on a slightly different schedule for the next couple of weeks at least, because of some work that I'm doing that sort of takes me into these places, and so I'm going to move my live streams with me. So we're going to be a little bit earlier, and this goes out globally. So I don't know if certain people in certain time zones now have the option of catching me live, whereas maybe they didn't before. So there you go. But yes, we're here to talk about the world of getting a job, basically. And I know it's a very, very emotional and kind of unpleasant experience for a lot of people. If you are between jobs, it can be extremely nerve-wracking and a very perplexing process, too. I found many years ago, when I was very young and I was coming out of school and I had to get a job and all, I found it extremely jarring experience. I found that recruiters were very difficult to deal with. It was difficult to do job interviews, trying to figure out like what are the right answers. Why do they ask increasingly strange questions that have very cryptic, things that they're looking for, and it can be tough. And it's an example where people are just thrown into the real world. A lot of people who work as employees their whole lives, they don't often encounter the real world where they have to go out and make something happen. And really what's happening is you're being thrown into the world of sales. And if you're not a sales type person, this can be quite an unsettling experience for you, because essentially you're having to sell yourself, right? You're having to figure out what to do, what you should do, how you should do it, and trying to sell yourself as a candidate, and then hoping somebody will choose you. And a lot of people, they've never been taught that process and they don't understand it. And consequently, they find it extremely difficult and emotionally charged. But yes, the award for the first person in the chat today goes to Kyle. Kyle says, "Hello, thank you for your videos. Can you share some tips for people on the other side?" I'm sorry, Carl, you have to be a little bit more specific. The other side, that could mean many different things. What are you referring to specifically? I'll be happy to help. We just came off a live stream about side hustles and entrepreneurship. So when you say the other side, I almost interpret it that way. Working as an employee, as opposed to being in business for yourself, where you don't need to go through an intermediary to make money. That's how I would interpret that. Carl says, "What I mean is some tips for newly promoted manager and who now has to hire persons without training." Okay, gotcha. Okay, I taught in a business program for, 3-4 years, something like that, just relatively recently. I'm pure private sector. I'm a private sector guy. I'm not in academia, but I did go back because I was asked to do some teaching in a business program, and I was teaching HR, and specifically in the area within HR of recruitment and selection. There's this. Where can I start here? There's the stuff that they teach recruiters, okay, and basically, they teach recruiters how to do job interviews and all this kind of stuff. And basically, the first thing you need to know about it is it's extremely ineffective. Okay. People that have PhDs in business have been studying this stuff for many years, and they've got a lot of data on this. And we know that, sort of the typical job interview that is done by a recruiter, they're very ineffective at finding, what candidate ends up being like a good employee, what candidate ends up being a bad employee. And part of the reason for that, now this is now my opinion, part of the reason for that is because the way they teach you how to do job interviews, they ask all those questions like, tell me about yourself, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and then the standard process you go to where, you want to check that they are motivated to do the job, you want to check that they're not underqualified or overqualified and all that kind of standard stuff. The problem is that process, they're trying to get to know the candidate without really putting the time in to get to know the candidate. That's the problem. The other issue with it is that in the case of a recruiter, the recruiter generally has no fundamental understanding of the job itself. They're an expert on hiring, supposedly, but they're not an expert on the actual job they're hiring for. So that makes it very hard for them to be able to judge whether a candidate knows their stuff or not, right? That's the other kind of thing going on here. I am answering your question. Just give me a moment. Like I'm building up to something here. Now, if you contrast this process with how they hire managers, like higher level managers, people that have to make decisions, and if the manager makes bad decisions, they can flush a huge money-making business unit down the toilet. Okay, so you really need to make sure you get the right person in those positions, right? At the worker level, the reality is that a lot of times a person is a person almost, but at a higher level where you're making big decisions, and if you get it wrong, there could be major consequences for the business as a whole. It's very important you get the right person in there. If you hire someone that doesn't know what they're doing, it will be very bad. They can eliminate the jobs of thousands of people, right? Because of their incompetence. So what they do at that level, the way they get to know candidates is they follow an entirely different process. They have a series of long conversations with the candidate, or all the candidates, the ones you're bringing in. And you really have to try and get to know them, get to know what their opinions are, get to know what, their worldview is, what are some of their hang-ups and their opinions and this kind of thing, right? And that's how you get to know whether that person, is really the person you want in there. And some people argue that you don't need to do that for lower level positions, people at the worker level. Maybe, but the data shows that the system that they're using now is very ineffective, like I said. So what I've always tried to do, as much as possible, because this is very labor intensive, is try and do the hiring of people lower down the way you would do it for the people higher up. Obviously, there's a huge overhead in doing this. You've got to spend a lot more time with a lot of candidates, but certainly say the final three. Okay. If it's a mid-level position, it's not like an absolute entry-level position. I'd try and get to know them. I'd take them out to lunch or whatever and or get a coffee or something and you could even do a dinner thing if you want to. Some people do that. I don't, but, and just get to know what their worldview is and what their attitude towards that job is and what their strengths are and, where they've come from. And you know what I'm saying? So if you really want to do it right, that's what I would suggest. If you don't have the time to do that properly, then I would suggest a combination of that plus the standard method they teach, which is all these standard cliche job interview questions asked in an extremely artificial situation where people have their guard way up and that you're going to get a rehearsed answer. So it's of questionable effectiveness. Okay, you could do whatever combination of those two, that suits you. So that's kind of what I would say. You really don't need that much training, in my opinion, to select good people. You need to know the job and you need to know the basics of people. Like if you need to understand people. The need to be like super polite and, approachable and all this kind of stuff, to be able to engage them in conversations in a way that makes them want to participate and open up and all this kind of stuff. Like if you can do that, I don't really think you need to know that much more. You could always go through some like really cheap and quick training that you can get online on how to interview someone for a job. I'm sure you could find that very easily. You know what I mean? But go beyond that and try and get beyond the sort of initial screening, go beyond that and try to get to know who these people are, because the time you invest there will pay off. It'll pay off in that you make less bad decisions. You hire the wrong person, and more, the people you do hire, they'll be more engaged. You guys will click together. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's probably good for what I have to say about that. Hopefully that makes sense. Leonardo says, "Hi, mister. I have an HR interview tomorrow at a multinational company and a coding test on Friday. I am not very confident for the coding test since it is very different from the skills needed in the usual daily software tasks. I went to appeal that even if I fail the coding test, I can be a good software developer." Okay. It continues. Okay. "I've already passed the telephone interview and even the technical interview. They also asked for 3 people for reference checks, so I feel almost passed. However, I'm worried for the coding test. I already failed the test once and they gave me one more chance to take the exam with 1 week difference." Okay. Well, I mean, that sounds encouraging. If they gave you another chance, they're obviously rooting for you. So, I mean, it seems like the way forward is just to learn all you can and pass this coding test, or prepare as well as you possibly can. If I'm reading this correctly, you've got an interview tomorrow and a coding test on Friday. So, just study like hell for the coding test. I would hit up the interviewer in the possibility that they could give you some hints on what the test will be on, some of the areas, maybe. I don't know. I know you've already taken it once and failed, but if there's any insight that they could give you, I would see if you could maybe get something out of them. If they know, you could ask them 1 or 2 questions. Is it going to be on this or on that? Something like that. That might help. But other than that, just bone up on it as much as you possibly can. And that's what's needed, it seems, in your situation. If you had any additional questions about it, certainly you could ask. But that's what it seems like to me. Brian says, "Good morning." Good morning, Brian. Thank you for being here. There are 11 people here. Thank you for joining me in this new time slot. And I just want to remind everyone, while we're waiting for the next question, that if you are newly between jobs and you are finding this entire process really, really frustrating, and you're just confused as to what to do, maybe you have issues in discovering decent jobs, maybe you have issues in preparing for job interviews or passing them, maybe you have issues in passing second or third interviews, or you want to explore the world of networking, which is where all the good jobs certainly really are. They're not necessarily posted publicly. Usually only 20%, I believe. It's around 20% of all the jobs that are actually out there are posted, right? So when you look on job boards and you see the jobs that are there, that's 20% of the jobs that are actually out there. The rest are in this thing called the hidden job market. They're there, but nobody has paid a service like Indeed or LinkedIn to post the job, because they don't need to do that, because the job will be filled before they need to do that, right? Usually through networking. And this is something that a lot of people realize later on in their careers, for sure. But if you're especially tuned in, you'll realize this sooner in your career, and you'll be able to tap those hidden jobs and be able to get those. Because not only are they the better jobs that, you don't need to look far and wide to find a candidate, because it's a highly desirable job. You can find someone that would want to do that job and be able to do it. And also, the competition for these is substantially less. If you're going for a job that's not posted, you might have one or two other people that are applying for it, that are being considered for it, other than yourself. That's certainly better than the hundreds of candidates you usually are up against when you're applying on the internet for a publicly posted job. So anyway, if you want to get into the world of networking and all that kind of stuff and learn that stuff, really open some doors. Okay, I have this course. It's all my advice from beginning to end with templates. And I talk about a couple of different ways you get jobs in the posted market and in the hidden market. So, and if you don't know what the hidden market is and you think it's all some big conspiracy or something, don't take my word for it. Go do your own research, and you will see that most people who get jobs get it in the hidden job market. On this channel, I've asked people in public opinion polls to all my subscribers. I've said, like, the last job that you got, did you get it by applying, to a job that was publicly posted, or did you get it through some form of networking? And overwhelmingly, it was like 80% of people responded, I got it through networking. So you don't have to look very far to see this, okay? So if you've never heard of this, do some research on it, okay? Learn all about it. And if you are looking for my sort of flavor of how I recommend you approach it, check out that course if you want it all in one place. Let's see here. Where are we? Okay, wow, this thing like reset or something. Okay, just give me 1 second here. Thanks for your reply. Okay, every once in a while my feed will just freeze on me. You see, I've got this thing up on the screen, this stuff in black here, where I can see there's like a lot of things going on. But my feed that's actually big enough for me to read, it just jumps on me and then it seems to have reset. So I can see Kyle says, what I mean is some tips for the newly promoted manager. See, we did that. Brian says, I've been applying for jobs in the career field for 3 years. Okay, this is new. Okay, so Kyle says, thank you for your reply. You're absolutely welcome, Kyle. Brian says, I've been applying for jobs in my career field for 3 years now. I've been hired several times with work contracts and let go before my first start date. My challenge is that I'm an ex-convict, okay? I've also been hired during an interview a couple of times, and then once it comes out that I'm an ex-convict, I'm escorted off the property. Oh, that's lovely. Any advice? Well, look, there's always the temptation that if you have something, I don't want to say bad about you, but something that like doesn't work in your favor. Like in this case, the whole ex-convict thing, ex-con. The temptation is to sort of front load that, to like start your interview where you declare that at the beginning, or you put it at the top of your resume, or, like you basically, you want them to understand that there's a temptation to do this. Okay. Certainly by some of the experiences you've mentioned, I can understand the temptation to want to disclose that to them earlier in the process. However, I still think it's not the way to go. Okay. The way I would approach these things is, this is typical of like how you sell something in general, is you usually don't lead with like the disadvantage. You lead with the advantages, and then you try and hook them with that, So in your case, it would be like, I have this qualification, I have that qualification, I have this experience, I have that skill, I'm great to deal with, I'm super friendly and personable, I don't mind talking to customers, or whatever. These are all things in your favor, and but hopefully after you've hooked them with that, I would then say in a controlled way that, well, unfortunately, I do have a criminal record. You will find this on my record. And then you sort of give an explanation. Okay, so it's not like they just find this out cold on their own. They find out with an explanation directly from you that says, like, however, it's not for anything, violent or, whatever would be a concern, and try and just put their mind at ease with that. It does qualify for this government, quota or, requirement or, whatever you could say to sort of smooth it over and minimize its negative impact. Okay. So I would take that approach. I still wouldn't lead with it, although it might be tempting to do so. I would still lead with your strengths. I would disclose this once they're hooked or once they want to go deeper, and then disclose it with a sort of crafted explanation that can kind of minimize the damage. That's how I would do it. Kahana Kumar says, thank you for doing these live streams. You're absolutely welcome. How do you do network? How do you network for a remote job? Like you want specifically a remote job? Well, listen, the concept of networking is that instead of the company or your organization reaching out to candidates by posting a job, like they're the ones that make the first move. They say, hey, I got this job. Whoever is interested, here's how you let us know. Here's how you apply or whatever. Networking is the opposite. Networking is like, okay, I'm going to look up all the organizations, that it's conceivable that I could work there, right? So like, for example, if I'm a architect, okay, let's say I'm an architect. I have a degree in architecture. I'm going to look up in my hometown all the places that hire architects. So that could all be in one industry, or it could be in multiple industries, right? And you're going to do it on Google Maps. So like you can see, like there's no point in applying to a company that's, 150 kilometers away or 100 miles away from where you live. You can't commute, like that, like that's impractical. So you target those, and what you do is you reach out, you initiate contact with them. Okay. And basically the simplest form, and I've said this a bunch of times, the simplest form of that is to send, say like there's the manager of the architecture department within that organization. You would find them on LinkedIn. Here's the individual at that company. And you send them a message. And the simplest form is to say, hello, I'm here. I'm a kick-ass architect. I solved this problem. If ever you're looking to hire an architect that can do this for you, let me know, because I know your company. I know you guys do some great work. I'd love to work for you. Thanks and have a good day. Right? So you just throw that out. That's the simplest form of it. And, the odds are that most people that you reach out to with that message, they're not hiring someone like you right now, like right this instant. Okay. But if you go to enough people, you do that to 100 people, 200 people, 500 people. Okay. Some people will be just serendipitously, they just happen to be looking for an architect right now. Right. And you just landed right in their lap. Right. So they'll probably respond and they'll say like, hey, let's get together and talk just to see, what your goals are and whether they jive with our goals. And, like this kind of thing. They're not going to say like, we're looking for a job and we'd like to hire you. But, sometimes they do. I've had that happen to me. That's how I got like that teaching job for instance, a form of that. But, that's the basic idea is like you are reaching out to them proactively. You don't know if they're hiring. All you know is that they're a company that, employs a lot of architects. You're an architect. So you contact the person who's most likely to be the hiring manager, like the head of the architecture department or something, or some executive who's like, the head of all design, head of director of design services, like, whatever, and say like, that basic message. And that's the principle. Okay. Now, as you can appreciate, a lot of companies, if they have highly desirable jobs and they pay really well, they don't need to post jobs publicly and look for candidates because they have people doing this, right? Maybe you've worked for a company that's done business with them and you know of them. So you have some contacts in the company. If you're looking for another job, you can always call them up and say like, hey, I'm looking for something. Are you guys looking for this right now or, anytime soon? If you are, let you know I'm in the market. I'd like to work for you guys. It's the equivalent of that, right? So those companies, they don't need to post these jobs. They're highly desirable jobs. And this is the basic idea, right? Now, most people get hired that way. They get hired by doing this. Either they reach out cold or, which is far less likely, they actually know somebody in the company. That's not the most likely thing. What's most common is that you don't know anyone. You just reached out cold through a standard way of communicating just to see if they were looking to hire an architect. And lo and behold, they are, and that they want to talk to you. So that's the idea. So you can learn how to do that. I've done videos on my YouTube channel that talk about some of the pieces of doing that. I've got the whole thing together in that course. That's like, beginning to end with templates and like it lays out like the principles. There's a lot of principles going on here. How you approach them, what you say, what you don't say. There's many other ways to do it other than the one method I described just now. Anyway, I tend to go on these tangents, so I've got to come back to the stream here. Okay, once again, it jumped on me. Where did I leave off? So yeah, that was like how do you network for a remote job? So, I hope I understand what you mean by remote job. Basically, you follow that process, and then at some point you communicate like, I'm interested primarily in doing a remote job, and see if they have that. Or you could put that in your original message. I'd love to work for you guys remotely, if ever you're looking for that. That might limit it a bit more, but, then you know what you're getting into. Leonardo says, thank you for your reply. I took 2 weeks off from my current company for studying for the coding test. They authorized it, but my team leader pressured me on the phone to say the reason for taking 2 weeks off. Okay, I took 2 weeks off. Okay, I unfortunately said the truth because otherwise he would think I'm hiding something. Do you think I did the right thing? How should I behave after returning to my company? Just stay professional like nothing happened. Well, listen, it's already happened, okay? So it really doesn't do you any good about constantly replaying things and winding back the clock and going, was this the right thing? Look, it's said and done, okay? At least this way, look on the bright side. At least you were honest. You didn't invent some excuse that you now have to, sort of hold up, right? And make it seem like that was actually the truth when it wasn't. You were transparent about it. Maybe that's a good thing, right? It doesn't matter what I think, if it was the right thing or not. I wasn't there for the conversation. My opinion will be completely uninformed on whether it was the right thing to do for you in that situation or not. It doesn't matter. It's done. And it doesn't sound like it's the end of the world for what that's worth. I think, it's fine. How should you behave after returning to your company? Stay professional. Yeah. Listen, never tell your current job that you're thinking of leaving. Okay. That's like bad, because if you tell them that you're thinking of leaving, what they're going to want to do is get rid of you first. Okay. Put it this way. That is what's in their best interest. Okay. You want to leave on your terms. What they want is for you to leave on their terms. So what they'll do is they'll say, okay, well, if I know you're leaving, I'm going to assume that you're no longer interested in doing any of your work. You're going to be coasting. You're not really going to be doing your job properly. Let's end this and let's replace you with somebody as soon as we can have someone lined up, right? Regardless of what your time frame is, we're going to want to replace you as soon as we can possibly have a replacement ready. Okay? So all things being equal, that will be most likely in their best interest to do that. You don't want that. You want to leave on your terms. If this doesn't work out, you still want your day job to come back to, right? Your existing job. You don't want them to like be planning to replace you, right? So don't like disclose what you did or, that you're looking for other things or whatever. Just say, I needed some time off. I had to take care of some personal business. And that's it. They don't have the right to question you further and demand that you tell them the details of your personal business. That's stupid. That's all you need to say. It was a personal matter. I had to take care of it, and I did, and now I'm back. And that's all you need to do. So that's how I would handle it. Mike Bernardo says, "Hello, sir. Blessed day for you. Can you shout out my wife and my son still watching your video because you are living in his dream? The name is..." Okay, just so you know, I tend to mispronounce everybody's name unintentionally, okay? So, but Burwill's son and Bernadette Bernardo. So hello to Burwill's son and Bernadette Bernardo. You guys are awesome. Keep on trucking. And Bernardo is doing this, right? Awesome. Mike Bernardo says, thank you, sir. You're welcome. Brian Leather. That's an awesome name, by the way. If you could write phonetically, a whip sound, that would be even better. Brian Leather, something like that. Thank you for your advice. I have tried in the middle of the interview also, so I will just keep on applying for jobs. Okay. Now, Brian. Oh, yeah, okay, that was the ex-con thing, yeah. Okay. Yeah, look, Brian, it's the biggest factor in this stuff working out, whether you get hired or not, is random chance. It doesn't depend on you. It depends on them. You go to one place, you basically say your position, and they think you're a total non-starter. Like, you said yourself, you get escorted off the property. You go to another place, they think, you're the guy, and they hire you. You haven't changed. They've changed. You're talking to different people now. That's the difference, right? So it's just a matter of random chance before you stumble upon somebody that sees the value in you and they pick you. And sometimes, you are lucky and, you chance upon that person pretty early on. Sometimes it takes a bit, but, it's not really anything that you're doing that's good or bad. From what I've heard, you're doing everything properly. Just try and be as friendly and as personable as possible in the interviews. Do your research and, try and anticipate questions and have good answers, ready. And, just try and go to as many interviews as you possibly can. And you will get good at doing interviews. And, sooner or later, something will come along. The more you do, the sooner you'll get to a yes. So that's the name of the game, So just keep on keeping on. You're going to find something. So the quicker you get there, the better. So do as much as you can. Brian says, honey, I am in architect advice and will use your advice. Okay, good. Mike Bernardo says, from Philippines, my whole family is watching your live video, sir. Well, that's awesome. We got the Bernardos of all ages here with us. So thank you for watching. Yeah, that's great. I've never actually been to the Philippines. I've heard a lot about it. I remember, okay, now hopefully I don't put my foot in my mouth here. It'd be easier just not to say any of this, but I remember it was like Marcos, it was Imelda and Fernando Marcos. That was the Philippines, right? Yeah. And I am given to understand that, is it the grandson or the son of Fernando and Imelda got elected for something in there recently? Anyway, that caught my attention. That caught my attention a little while ago. Kahuna Kumar says, I have been a stay-at-home dad for an autistic son. Yes, I can definitely relate to that. The whole autism thing. I've been touched by that myself. I have been freelancing and doing some gigs. Any advice on employment gap, and there's an icon right in the way, and should I disclose this on my resume? Well, it depends on the details, because like obviously a work gap is something that can be a red flag. Okay. If the work gap is like a current work gap, okay, that can be a big issue. If it's, say, longer than 3 months, is like kind of sort of in that time. What it just means is that you're going to have an explanation for it, okay? Because if there's not an adequate explanation for it, they're going to assume that the reason why you don't have a job is because no one's hiring you. And if they're not hiring you, maybe it's because there's some red flag, right, that makes you a high-risk candidate. So you've got to come up with an explanation. Now, if they perceive you as sort of doing nothing for like longer than 3 months, that a lot of times will be interpreted as a red flag. So the key is to be doing something in there. So if you're doing some freelancing, you can say like, look, I've been doing some freelancing. It's not really a work gap. I've been working. It's just that I haven't been employed for one particular company. I've been doing freelance, and I've been working for like, these 5 or 6, people or companies or whatever, or something like that. There's other things you can do too. Sometimes, like the problem with freelancing or being a consultant is that it's a common excuse when people haven't really done anything. So they say, oh, I'm a consultant, right? So you might have to say something further to have it carry more weight, to get them to believe you. It's not just me making stuff up to cover up a work gap. This is actually real. Some other things that I would normally say for a work gap is go out and take like a quick free internet course or something. And then you can legitimately, truthfully say like, well, I've actually gone back to school and gotten some training. I've had a desire to bone up and improve my skills in this area, and that's what I'm doing. So it's not a gap. It's just that I've gone back to school, right? I'm taking this course and I'm taking courses in this area, and, so you've got something there, and you could even put it on your resume so it doesn't even show up as a gap, right? You can say, I went back to school. I took some courses on this. Now that those have just recently finished, I'm ready to rejoin the workforce, or whatever, right? So that can sort of diffuse the issue with the work gap. Okay. Yeah, you need to, if it were me, I would put something on your resume that sort of deflects and doesn't lead them to conclude that you have a work gap that doesn't have a good explanation for it. So yes, put some of that stuff on your resume. But just beware of saying like, I'm freelancing, and then that's it, like not providing any backup to that. I'm freelancing, I'm doing this type of work. I'm working for 2 clients or 2 companies or my former company, or, whatever, like give them something. So it carries a bit more weight, and they don't just assume it's an excuse. Mike Bernardo says, thank you very much, sir. My family is super happy, but my 2 child is already jealous. Sir, can I request again? Please shout out my child. Her name is Burwill Cloud and Burwilna Rain. Okay. Well, there we go. So Burwill Cloud and Burwilna Rain. Okay. Kahana Kumar says, managing all of his autism services is a lot of work. It's like a full-time job. Yes. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. Someone in my family has been touched with low-functioning autism, and so I understand how hard that can be to have to constantly deal with. Mike says, I hope you will come here in the Philippines, sir. Yeah, well, if ever my work takes me there. It hasn't so far, but if ever it does, yes. So there we go. We've reached the end of the questions. If you have any questions, ask them in the chat. I will be happy to answer. And I also want to also point out, where's my finger? Here we go. See, my screen is backwards, so I got to lift the opposite arm to point at something that I normally would. But this right here, the writing in red, is I have a third course that's going to be out in about a week. It's called Write Like a Professional. And if you want proper written communication skills that will allow you to communicate like an executive, this is the course to take. It'll do two things for you. First of all, it works on, I share with you some of the tips that I've learned teaching communication to 20-somethings in business school. And, having worked all the way up to the CEO level, communication is super important. Being able to communicate professionally is very important. And that involves things that like the low level, the mid level, and the high level. You got to know how to write like from a grammar, punctuation, level. You've also got to learn, at the mid level, like how to structure and articulate your ideas correctly. And then at a high level, at more of a strategic kind of ideas level, you've also got to know what to say and how to say it to get the desired result. If you're trying to persuade someone, or you're trying to, convince them of something, or you're trying to get buy-in or consensus on something, or you're trying to communicate something in a very clear way. Maybe it's a complicated topic and it's hard to explain it in simple terms that people can understand. Whatever the goal is, having great written communications, like above average written communication skills, are very important. And I've encountered a lot of people in my career that, they've got a lot of skills and they're very talented, very skilled people that know how to do a lot of things. But what's holding them back, one of the things that's holding them back, is they can't write properly, right? They don't understand the protocol for how to write. Something I mentioned earlier in this live stream is networking, reaching out to hiring managers at companies that you don't work for example, and how does one do that? How do you write that message? First of all, what should you say? How should you say it? And, what's the protocol for writing something like that in a way that has the most chance of somebody wanting to respond to and respond in the affirmative? So that is an example for why, you would want exceptional written communication skills. So if that's what you're looking for, this course will be out in a week. Now, all my courses are like $100, but this one, for the first month, it will have a special introductory, price of like 25% off, which I've never done before. I've never done any kind of rebates on any of my courses ever, since the beginning. But there's going to be one on this because it's coming out in a sort of drip fashion where, for the first few weeks, I'll be publishing stuff like sort of in real time. So the people that sign up for it and take it during that time, you get the discount on how much it costs. And then afterwards, it'll be just $100. So if that's something you're interested in, I will have the details in a week. I'm working on the website, the web page and all that. That'll be up soon. And I will have more details as they become available. Other than that, I have these two courses. If you're interested in either of these, check out the description box below this video, it has not only links to the course, but it has links to videos where I answer a ton of questions about these courses, so you know exactly how it works, you know exactly what you're getting into, and then you can decide if that's something that you're interested in. Okay, so coming back to the chat here. Mike says, thank you very much, sir, for the lots of lessons and tips. Actually, I'm trying to apply outside the Philippines, and I'll gladly announce, because that your tips and lesson is made me approved. Well, good. It sounds like things are going well for you, Mike. That's good. Yusuf, my close personal friend, says, good morning, teacher. Good morning, Yusuf. Thank you for joining us. Kahuna Kumar, can you do a bundle of your courses? Just a thought. You know what? I could. Yeah, I could do that. I'm open to doing that. You would have to email me to set that up. And I'd give like if you want to get all three or something, I could give you, I don't know, some kind of discount. I haven't thought through that, but if that's what you want to do, email me and I will respond with how much it would cost to do all three of them. And then if you send that to me, then I will turn you on. You can register, and then I will just put you in all the courses. They're all on different platforms. So like they're not on one platform where you could just do it all within that platform. I think one's on Teachable, one's on Thinkific, and this latest one is on Podia. So anything like that, like a bundle, it would just email me and we can work it out. And there you go. So once again, we've reached the end of the feed. So if you do have any last minute questions, let me know. Get in the chat right now, because I will be winding this down soon, especially if I don't get a ton of questions coming in. Yes. Here is the thing that I've done a few times just to sort of illustrate what I was talking about networking. If you have a hometown, Manila, right, is the capital of the Philippines. So Manila. Okay, now if I go to maps, right, we're looking at a map of Manila. Here's Manila. Now, if you wanted to do networking to find out, what companies or organizations in Manila, if you lived in Manila, if you want to find out who are the potential employers that are around you, maybe you live right here in the center of Manila where it says Manila, like right here. Now, you could go up here and you can enter in your industry or an industry that employs people like you, okay? For example, if you worked as an accountant, pretty much almost every industry employs accountants, right? You wouldn't just look up accounting businesses, right? Because you could work as an accountant, for a restaurant chain or for a manufacturing plant, right? So something more specific. Now, before we're talking about architecture, so I don't know, architect. I'm just going to type in architect, okay? Now, bam, up on the map, you get a bunch of businesses. So let's look at this one here. DSFN Architects, right? So let's say I click on this. So I can see, first of all, physically how far away they are from me. If I lived right here and they're over here, okay, I can see where they are. So this is important for if you want to commute, right? Now, you've got the name of the company. You've also got their website. I suppose you could go to the website and, look if they have a careers page and do it that way. Here, we're going to their website. This is very slow because I'm live streaming. But what's more important is the name, okay? So what I would do from here, okay, is I would remember the name. Okay, if this looks like a place you'd want to go, I'd remember the name. Now, I've typed in architects. Let's pretend that there's another industry that also they have potential to hire me. Let's pretend that I could also work for a construction company. Okay, so construction companies. I'm just going to type in construction. Okay, bam. I get even more dots, different dots. Okay. So here's one, CNC Construction and Development Corporation. Now they look small, so maybe they wouldn't employ an architect, but you never know. So I would write that name down too, okay? And what we can do is you can zoom into different parts of the city here, and you can click this. It says search this area, right? Bam, here's even more construction companies. So everywhere you look, you can find businesses that have the potential to hire you, right? So that's kind of the first step of this process. The second step of the process is then when you've got a list of these companies, I would go onto LinkedIn. If you have a LinkedIn account, hopefully you do. If you don't, you should consider getting one. It's free. And go into LinkedIn and do a people search, and you confine it to the geographic region of Manila, and you look up these companies. So like this one here, it was called BuildX Construction and Realty, okay? You never know. Maybe they employ an architect. Maybe they don't. But you don't know until you try. So obviously, you'd start with the more promising ones first. And you do a search for BuildX Construction and Realty Development Corp. And you confine your search to Manila, and you do a people search. So what it's going to come up with, it's going to come up with a bunch of individuals that are inside this company. And one of them might be the owner, one of them might be the general manager, one of them might be the chief architect. And you take your pick. You can send your message to any of those people, right? That message that says, hello, I'm here. I'm a kick-ass architect. I solved this problem. I know you guys do good work. If ever you're looking for an architect to join your team, let me know, because I'd love to work for you guys. Thank you and have a good day, right? Now, most people are not going to respond because they just don't happen to be wanting to hire an architect right now, right? But some people will. It's statistical probability, maybe 5%, even if it's 1%. You go to 200 people, 200 companies, like we found 200 dots, right? Like here, that's this part of the city. We live right here. Let's do this part of the city, search this area. Bam, here's even more. So within each of those, you could have multiple people, okay? But this is just construction. If we did architecture, you get another whole bunch of dots. So there's a lot of potential employers here. And you're going to contact people at all of these companies. You're going to send them a message over LinkedIn. There's many different ways of doing this, many different things you could say. And, some of them are going to respond and say, maybe we should talk some more, right? Because there may be a job in it. They might be looking to hire an architect now, or they're always on the lookout for talented people, and they're impressed by the fact that you reached out to them, and you had a very professional note, very well written. It showed initiative. It showed great communication skills, great professionalism. So they're interested. So this is how you can line up some meetings like that. And when you go in for those, if there is a job at the end of it, which presumably there is, there's not a lot of competition. How many other people are they talking to? Not many, right? And let me be clear, you're not doing this to put yourself forward for jobs that are publicly posted. You're doing this to put yourself forward for jobs that aren't publicly posted. Okay, that's the whole point of this. That's called tapping the hidden job market. So that's a very basic demonstration of like one of the most basic things in networking. Okay, there's a lot more complicated things you could do too, but that's like probably the simplest form of it. Okay, where did I leave off here? Brian says, good grief, the word honey was supposed to be word funny because you used architect. Hey, you're an ex-con, you called me honey. I don't ask questions. It's not the time to sort of show some attitude. Because you used architect as an example, I'm dictating through headset while driving fully loaded semi through Chicago. Okay, well, don't drive off the road because of anything I say. Keeping your eyes on the road is number one. Don't get too hung up on typos that might have happened or allegedly happened. It's all good, Brian. Kanu Kumar, how do you find out about a company's work culture? Well, the best way is to go and talk to them, right? Presumably you get to see the physical place. I mean, if you go in there and everyone's cracking jokes and they look happy to be there and they're working hard, and the boss says, "Hey everyone," and they say, "Hey boss," that tells you something. You go to another place and it's miserable, it's cold, people look depressed, people look angry. The boss is kind of this gruff kind of jerk, right? That tells you something else. That's the best way to do it. I mean, apart from actually being there, like starting to work there, that's kind of as good as you can do without actually working there yet. You get a glimpse. I mean, I know you can go on review sites. Like there are some sites that review companies, like the salary places like Glassdoor and PayScale. They allow people to post reviews of companies. Reviews they're not pinpoint accurate. Usually people will write a review for one of two reasons. Either they're absolutely delighted with the company and they want to announce that, or they absolutely hate the company and they want to announce that. And statistically, you're going to get both of those wherever you look, right? Like if it's a big company, you're going to get, delighted people and total haters, wherever, you're looking at. So, you can look at that. It's a tool, but I wouldn't base your entire opinion off that. If you really want to know for sure, just go and talk to them, do an informational interview, or do this type of networking activity. And, if there's a potential job at the end of it, they'll call you in and you can see them. I started the consulting business by doing this basic type of activity, except I was meeting with just CEOs of companies. I must have talked to I can't remember. I used to know the number. I can't remember the number anymore because it was years ago, but it was 100, 200 CEOs in my hometown of different companies that I didn't know. I just met through this process. Instead of asking for a job, you're asking for an informational interview. You're saying I'd love to get your expert opinion on this industry, where it's going, would you be able to spare me half an hour? And, a lot of people say, sure, so you go down and either you go to their office, or what I prefer is you go to a coffee shop, a sort of neutral place, like a Starbucks, it's kind of upscale and maybe it's near where they work. And you say hey, I'll meet you. Let me know what's a convenient time and I'll meet you, and so I ended up meeting a lot of other CEOs like that and doing a lot of informational interviews. And you meet all kinds. I've met some great people, absolutely wonderful people, highly advanced social skills, very charismatic, very personable. And I've also met the opposite. I've also met real jackasses, real jerks, very gruff, very suspicious, almost on the point of paranoia. It's what do you want to talk to me about? Why are you asking these questions? People like this are just whoa, okay, it's okay. So it's like anything else, you get all kinds, right? But most of the time it goes really well, right? If people invite you for a meeting, they say, if you say could you spare me 30 minutes? I'd love to be able to get your opinion on this. Maybe just we could grab a coffee or something. A lot of people won't respond if they're not into that. And some people who will say, sure. And you just go down there and you ask them a lot of questions about, presumably what they do or what, something that they would enjoy talking about. And you can learn a lot. This is a great way to learn, sort of industry inside information. If you want to be a pilot, but someone was asking that the other day. I want to be a pilot. How do I become a pilot? And I was saying, well, first of all, I'm not a pilot, so I can't help you. But if I were in your shoes, this is what I would do. I would reach out through a system very similar to this that we went through. Who are the people in your hometown that would know how to be a pilot? Well, presumably pilots, right, would know this. And people who employ pilots, right? So maybe people like the dean of whatever aviation school would know. maybe some people that are like at the executive level at airlines who are based in your town. Maybe if they have such people in your town, they would know. If there's like aviation school or an aviation association for hobbyists, or whatever, they would presumably know. So like go and reach out to these people and say, I'd very much like to talk to you. I'd have a few questions. I'm an aspiring pilot, and I'm just wondering if I could get your opinion on, where the industry's going and what skills are going to be needed. If you could spare me half an hour, I would regard that as an honor. And a lot of people will say, sure, yeah, come on down. And that's how you learn this stuff, right? I mean, I'm an introvert and I can do this. It's really not that hard. If you know what to say and you know how the process, a lot of you guys can do this too. And you can meet these people and you can make a very good first impression, and you can get a lot of really useful information that will help you with your career goals or your personal goals. Anyway. Okay. Okay, this is I think the last question I'll take, because it's been over an hour. Kahuna Kumar says, what are your thoughts on working for startups? Well, like I do a more or less weekly live stream where I talk about startups. I talk about, doing side hustles or starting a, like that's what I do. I'm a consultant that helps small businesses, mid-sized businesses, in basically making more money. That's what I do. So, I mean, I'm a huge fan of people that want to get into the world of business and step out of the rat race of working as an employee, where you're going through an intermediary to make money, which is your employer. Instead, you learn how to make money yourself directly. You don't need an employer, right? I'm all for that. The more people that want to learn this, I think it's a great thing to learn. It's certainly something I'm passionate about. So I mean, startups are good. Startups are a type of small business. Usually they're a more risky, kind of more innovative type of smaller business. But I mean, that it has pros and cons. It depends what your goals are. If your goals are to get some work experience, it can be really useful. If your goal is to make a lot of money or to have a very stable job with, a pension and benefits, a startup might not be the best alternative. So, but it definitely has a place. It's great for people just starting out. It's a way to get some hard experience. They may not have a lot of money depending on what stage their startup is in. But I think it's far more useful to learn how to start a startup rather than go working in one. Because if you're going to work in it and you're not going to make a ton of money, it would be better if you were running the show. You know what I mean? And in this day and age, you can start a startup for hardly any money. Like people start side hustles all the time. Literally millions of people start side hustles every day around the world, and a lot of options don't require any money. They just require time and effort and knowledge. So learning the knowledge really helps. I mean, that's why I have this, like that course, right? That teaches people business, because I think it's great. And half the reason I created this was for entrepreneurs, right? So I think that starting a startup is really good. Working in a startup is a good option if you have very specific goals. But it may not be the best option for some people. If you're older, you're looking for something stable, something guaranteed, or less risky, you wouldn't necessarily want to be at a startup. Or if you just love not having a lot of formal structure. Some people like that. I like that. I think it's a great learning experience for everyone to work in a startup. It will teach you things that will benefit you your entire career. So that's what I think about that. Anyway, hopefully that helps. There's 19 of you guys here. Thank you for joining me today. I just got to say, if you are finding the whole process of getting a job very confusing, upsetting, depressing. You're not alone. It's common knowledge that when we're between jobs, a lot of us are at the lowest point one of the lowest points in our lives. It's not a good feeling, but this is a skill like any other. You can learn it, and there's a lot of different things you can do that will bear fruit, that will, find you a job or find you a source of income. So the more you know and the more you learn, the more you practice and the more things you try, the further you'll go. So thank you for joining me today. I will be back next week for another installment of How to Get Hired, where you can ask your questions. Until then, I wish you nothing but the best. You guys are awesome, and I will see you soon. Take care.